It is our pleasure to welcome back to the show for the first time in a while our guy Ben Standig. Ben, how are you, sir?
Craig, I'm doing all right, man. How about yourself?
Doing well, man. Doing well. So your outfit, the Athletic, published with your guy Dane Brugler their first mock draft today, which I think out of like the main outlets, I feel like this is the first one I've seen. Hey, are you guys like trying to be first, or did I just miss a bunch of other ones?
I can't even keep track. As we know, mock drafts are like podcasts. Everyone seems to have one.
Yeah.
So I don't even know anymore in terms of some of the bigger names who's put out what. But obviously Dane is one of the more respected guys. So it's his first one, and obviously the college football regular season has just ended. So I guess in that respect, it's a good time to take that perspective of what he's learned and put it out there to the public domain.
Yeah, no doubt. And so he has the Commanders taking offensive tackle from Penn State, Fashanu. And I think it's interesting, Ben, just kind of globally as we talk about this, to remind the audience that everything we do in terms of Washington projection between now and at least mid-January is really, hey, we think this would be a good idea for them, because the people that are going to make these picks aren't in their jobs yet. They're still working for other teams. There will be a new GM. That GM will hire some new front office people. There'll be a new head coach, yada, 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 down the list. But what do you think, without knowing like what scheme they're going to run and all the other things, of the idea of going tackle, and what does that mean for Charles Leno, the cap situation, and kind of the bigger picture of the Commanders as they embark on the next rebuild?
Yeah, I mean, like, to your point, we don't know who's making the decision and what their approach would be. And, maybe more specifically, we don't know what they think of Sam Howell. And that's obviously going to be a huge question. It's amazing. Even a week ago, right before the Giants game, I don't think any of us were thinking this team would be picking fifth, which is currently where their projection is. But life moves fast, and that's where they are. And now that does bring quarterback into play. But since we don't know what to make of that, right? I mean, and there were other quarterbacks picked fairly high in the draft after the first two guys went 1 and 3. It's probably easy to say, let's give Washington a tackle right now, because we know the offensive line has got to be in a position that they look to help out this year. So that makes it a little bit easier there. And it's, as far as what it would mean for Charles Leno in particular, look, he's got a pretty big cap number. Obviously, there are ways to lower that, extension, or do some other things you can manipulate the cap with, but he would seem like a logical cap casualty or potential one just based on the numbers and kind of where this team is right now. So taking an offensive lineman or offensive tackle at 5, I haven't studied enough to know whether this is the guy to get, but obviously based on the lists you see in the rankings, he's right up there along with Alt from Notre Dame. So makes sense in that regard. And, I don't think anybody would complain about them taking tackle unless there is a feeling that, hey, they've got to go quarterback if given the opportunity.
Right. What do you think Sam has to do to stave off that conversation over these final 5 games?
I mean, as simplistic as this sounds, I just kind of think look the part and continue to show development. As bad as the game was on Thursday against Dallas, I thought Howell, particularly in the first half, looked the part, looked fine. He had some really nice throws on the drive that he capped with his own touchdown run right before Dallas immediately came back, scored, and then the game kind of got away in the second half. They've got tough defenses coming up. Even this game against Miami, we're not viewing the Dolphins from the defensive perspective because their offense is so scary, but their defense has been pretty good. They've got a couple of excellent cornerbacks led by Jalen Ramsey, but they've got a legit defense. If Sam Howell, forget the win and the loss, if Sam Howell can go out there, look poised as he has been this year, make plays, he's got to limit the turnovers. I think he's like second in the league in interceptions, has thrown 2 pick sixes in consecutive games. Do his best to limit the mistakes. If he can do these things over the remaining 5 games, that might be enough, combined with his other positive attributes, to say this is a guy we need to continue looking at, especially knowing he's got this cheap contract. But, at the end of the day, the guys that are going to be in this draft who are going to be picked in the top 10 will all be coming out of college with a higher grade than Sam Howell did when he came out. And therefore the question will be, does Howell project forget the fifth round part, but does how projection compare with what scouts and others are seeing with these players? If the answer is no, that he falls short,
Right.
that's where it's going to be tough almost no matter what he does, I would think.
No, 100%. And I think that becomes such a scary proposition. And this is why scouts get paid what they get paid and why GMs get paid so much money, is because, like, Sam was a fifth rounder. Purdy was the last pick in the draft. And I would argue that of the quarterbacks that came out the last 2 years, those are two of the top three, with C.J. Stroud being above both of them. Obviously, Richardson's hurt. Young's in a terrible situation in Carolina. Like, there, you can pick apart some certain numbers and say that Kenny Pickett actually has been better than Sam Howell. I think most people, certainly around here, would take Howell over Pickett. But, like, the point is, like, Sam's actually, as you said, mostly looked the part. And so I am curious when a new person comes in and dives into the numbers and, like, goes beyond the fact that he leads the league in yards, because that's a counting accumulation stat. He also leads the league, as you referenced, in interceptions at this point. Like, how does it actually play out in terms of the deeper numbers and what they see from a process standpoint? How does the leadership stuff play into it? Ron was talking about that with the maturity today. And when you add all that up, like, I feel, Ben, like that's actually going to be hard to beat from a prospect who isn't very clearly elite.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it is really going to be fascinating. Just to sort of broaden out the topic, like, as you know, you and I are looking for content all the time, and we will be looking for a lot of it in the offseason. And we knew we were going to have a lot already because of the expected coaching change in the front office and all that stuff. The quarterback thing seemed to not resolved itself, but it felt like, okay, if Washington's picking in the, somewhere after the 10th pick, that Sam Howell would make logical sense to stay with him. And the fact that now this drop in the standings has put them back in the mix for a quarterback at the highest levels. I mean, they will be close enough, if they were to stay at 5, to trade up for Caleb Williams at 1 if that's what they wanted to do. Should the Bears or whoever is holding the number 1 pick, should they be willing to make a call? That is a conversation I didn't think we were having, and yet that's why it is going to be incredibly interesting and important for these guys to figure out what to make of the traits of these quarterbacks, like you said, not just how they throw the ball, but being a leader on offense of the team. How do they handle pressure? How do they take the coaching? All these things will go into it. At least the people, the organization has that sense of that with Hal, except if they do clean house, then none of those people will in theory be around. Right. So, now it goes back to a whole other component of evaluation. So, yeah, it will be really fascinating to see how this plays out. And, yeah, that to me is like, these, I wrote the other day, these final 5 games can be a slog unless you view it for what it is. It's sort of evaluating how, and kind of the beginning of the Josh Harris era in terms of starting to get a feel for where this thing may go.
Ben Standig from The Athletic with us. One more question for him on the way out. Same kind of thought line, but on defense. How do you think that the simplification of what Ron is going to be asking these defenders to do compared to the mass confusion that was this entire season under Del Rio can help the evaluations on that side of the ball? Or is it kind of just a wash, and the next people are going to come in and take whatever evaluations they had of these players previously, and that's what they're going to think of them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and it is always kind of a weird thing when you hear coaches say we need to simplify things. That may help short term, but I always feel that sort of doesn't sound great for the longer term view. Like, what was it what were they doing? Calculus in the huddle? Like, what is so complicated that things were so bad that we've seen explosive plays allowed all season long? But okay, if in the short term Rivera thinks they need to simplify things, limit the amount of plays in the playbook for the given week, will help. Sure. I mean, they got 5 games to go. The Miami game is an unbelievable.
That was Anthony mishitting a button, Ben. You can keep going.
Miami makes it such a daunting challenge for them right off the bat. So if simplifying the playbook and everything makes it easier to deal with them, I mean, great, go ahead and do it. But in terms of the bigger picture evaluations, you're right. We'll see to what degree he does that, changes things, that it alters perceptions or evaluations of any of these players. And look, I think a real big question is going to be, what do they actually have? I mean, if you just look at the defense, obviously they traded away the 2 defensive ends. You've got the 2 tackles. Then what? Like, I don't know what to make of the rest of the unit, knowing that guys like Fuller and Curl are free agents. I'd argue they probably need 2 linebackers. Do they have to draft another cornerback or sign another cornerback high, considering what Forbes has been this year? They have a lot of questions, and hopefully at least they get some more clarity, whoever's making the call over these last 5 games.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like I like some of the talent a little bit better than you do, but I also I don't feel strongly about any of it because the results are what they are. I said that was the last question, and then Anthony did whatever he just did. So now I have another question for you, Ben. You get to play referee, which I know is your just lifelong dream. We have a fine system here on the show, and it's kind of like penalties in the NFL. There's 5-yard varieties, 10-yard varieties, and 15-yard varieties, and we just do 5 points, 10 points, or 15 points. Is Anthony editing a clip onto the air in the middle of a guest, and it happens to be the guest who's refereeing this question's answer, a 5, 10, or 15-point penalty?
Wow, great question, and I don't have Dean Blandino to reference here. Look, part of me wants to, you got to have the kids learn their lessons. Part of me wants to give the 15, but look, Anthony's a young kid. He's trying hard. I'm gonna give him the 5 and just tell him, don't do it again, or you're gonna have to, talk to me about it.
What kind of youth league referee garbage is this? We're a professional radio show, Ben.
I appreciate you, Ben.
You're not here to try hard. We're here to perform. All right, fine. 5 points. I said he's the referee. I will respect the decision. I will argue the call later. I will say thank you for your football insight, and I will question your referee.
Well, you can ask New York, you can throw the flag, have it challenge it. I mean, that's fair.
All right, we'll deal with that later. Well, maybe I'll appeal to Dave Johnson next. I think that's what I'll do. Ben, thank you for the time. Thank you for the time. I'll see you Sunday in the press box.
Yeah, man. See ya.
This is the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.